Welcome to Cape Town, South Africa. Once a tiny way station for French, Dutch, English, and Portuguese traveling around Africa to the Indies, over the past 4 centuries has expanded into the 10th largest city in Africa. It now serves as the home of the national parliament, countless tech startups, the 6th busiest port on the continent, and around 2.5 million South Africans. While all this growth has radically altered the geography and ecosystems of this region, the Cape Peninsula, South Atlantic, and Indian Oceans are still all incredible hotspots of wildlife and biodiversity. Although it may be difficult to imagine this standing in the city center, if you take a short trip up into the lower basin of Table Mountain National Park, you are immediately immersed in 22,000 hectares of diverse fauna and wildlife. The national park's ecosystem is famous for having more species of plants than Great Britain, and is so unique that the plants found there are classified into their own kingdom. This park is considered to be the gem of the Cape Flora region, containing 20% of the continent's floral species, even though it covers less than 0.5% of the African continent. Urban growth has already destroyed some of the endemic organisms, and scientists estimate that up to 40% of the remaining plant species found in the park are at risk of extinction from climate change. The impacts of climate change can already be seen, as although wildfires are a natural part of the floral life cycle, rising temperatures and declining rainfall has already increased the frequency and intensity of forest fires. On one particularly hot day back in March 2015, firefighters had to constantly rush around to try and contain 14 different fires. Even on the day we filmed on top of Table Mountain, you could see seemingly endless white smoke billowing into the atmosphere. As seasonal winds spread the smoke around, the entire peninsula descended into a gray haze. Although fiercer forest fires can threaten the ecosystem and surrounding communities, some wildlife is still able to thrive. Further down the peninsula lies the Cape of Good Hope, famous for being the most southwestern part of the African continent. This is where the currents of the Atlantic and Indian Ocean meet, and where the warm water Agulhas currents merge with the cold water Benguela current. Going back on land, while the landscape appears uninhabited at first, you quickly realize that you are not alone. These are chacma baboons. They are omnivorous, and the Cape baboons are known for eating shellfish that they find along the coast. While they are found throughout southern Africa, adapting to nearly every biome in this part of the continent, including woodlands, savannas, subdeserts, and lower alpine conditions, the baboon population found in the Cape is considered to be critically endangered due to the habitat restriction and lack of genetic variation. Baboons move and live in hierarchical troops, with the dominant male often directing the group to easily accessible resources. While females have been shown to adopt orphaned young, if the dominant male is replaced, he will often commit infanticide, killing all of the other male's children. While the species as a whole is safe, some researchers have estimated that the Cape population could disappear within the next decade. The Cape is also home to multiple families of rock hyraxes. Found throughout the continent, in South Africa they are often referred to as dassies. Hyraxes have 3 chamber-filled stomachs filled with symbiotic bacteria that can help break down the plants they eat. While it may be hard to believe, they are actually closely related to elephants, sharing short tusk-like incisor teeth and flattened nails on their feet, which act like suction cups, keeping them on the rocks. Just down the coast is an African penguin colony located at Boulders Beach. These birds spend up to 75% of their lives in the water, and while they primarily hunt down the open ocean, they will also look for fish, crustaceans, and other marine vertebrae closer to shore. This can be detrimental, as penguins are at a high risk of deformation from oil and other petrochemical spills. In the water, they propel themselves forward with short, dense, webbed feet and can swim over 12 miles per hour. Their flippers allow them to easily control their movements underwater, effortlessly maneuvering towards prey and away from predators. Towards the end of the day, they return to land, shaking off water to dry off and warm up. While speedy in the water, they're not too fast on land. Once ashore, they spend their time soaking in the sun to try to warm up before nightfall. Up close, you can see pink glands under their eyes, which aid in thermal regulation, as blood can be sent there to be cooled or heated. The penguins also spend an enormous amount of time grooming. And if they can't find a partner, they're more than happy to groom themselves. While they often appear to be asleep, they are constantly on the lookout for potential threats. On land, they have been hunted by hyenas and humans. In between 1910 and 2010, the total penguin population dropped from around 2.5 million to 55,000. If this decline continues, the African penguin is expected to be extinct within 15 years. Back up the coast is a Cape seal colony on Geisker Island, one of the 40 found on the southwest tip of Africa. In order to get a closer look at these animals, you have to get away from the safety and comfort of the shore and head out into the ocean. While some of the seals rest on the island, all of the action takes place beneath the waves. Hesitant at first, the Cape seals start to approach you from a distance as soon as you enter the water. However, their caution is quickly replaced by curiosity, which then leads to investigation. Before you know it, the seals are darting around you, zipping by, trying to figure out what this weird, slow-moving creature is that has entered their habitat. Far from fearful, they'll swim right up to your face, examining you and the reflections in your camera lens. Since adult males can grow up to 700 pounds and up to 10 feet long, they may sometimes appear to be sluggish in the water. However, this illusion will be immediately broken as soon as you see a seal fly through the water at up to 20 miles per hour. They can also dive over 200 meters beneath the surface and hold their breath for over 7 minutes. It can be hard not to think about the fact that this large seal population sustains lots of great white sharks in this area. Although, on the bright side, the sharks rarely ever strike this close to shore, where they can be easily outmaneuvered. As they glide effortlessly through the water, you're often left behind. While it can be difficult to see from the underwater footage, the currents are also constantly dragging and pushing you around. Ultimately, trying to keep up can be hopeless. While the Cape seals seem to be constantly moving, if you're in the water long enough, you'll notice that they spend a lot of time floating on the surface. They're actually partially sleeping, resting while keeping parts of their brain active to look for predators. They're also trying to keep their fins above water in the sunlight to keep their extremities warm. Considering that the average water temperature in February is around 18 degrees Celsius, conserving energy in any way possible is beneficial. While you can swim up to them as they sunbathe, if you get too close, they'll often jolt away. The challenge then becomes finding the line between getting the best possible shots and trying not to pressure them or scare them off. It can be quite difficult. Ultimately, while the Cape fur seal populations are safe for now, if humans do not alter the course of global climate change, all the wildlife populations and humans in South Africa will be in peril.